Hello. It works. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight to celebrate Mak, Kayla. Mak, Kayla. This, yeah. It's so cool. No, this is beautiful, and it's nice to see family and friends and faculty and students and everybody. And I just wanted to say a few words about the experience of, going through this thesis process with Mak and Kayla. It's the first time that I've taught the senior thesis seminar here, so I will always remember you two as my first senior thesis folk. Yep. No, and it was a remarkable experience to work with Mak and Kayla over the course of, starting in the spring of last year, touching base over the summer, and then working like mad through 3.5 months of constant drafts and pages upon pages of things. We laughed, there were tears, there were more tears, a little more tears. But in the end, and I feel like I did say this, two very unique projects. We had Mak was writing a piece of fiction and a critical introduction about kind of fan fiction and the way that it kind of tests social norms. And Kayla was writing a series of 7 essays, kind of rooted around the body chakras, and also wrote a critical introduction about the role of narrative in the Katha Upanishad. And it was just a journey to go on with both of these projects, and they seem to speak to each other in such natural, organic ways. There were a lot of memes involved. It was part therapy session, part writing workshop, part research intensive, but at the end of it, it was just, I was really proud of the work that both of you produced. I think you were really proud of the work that you produced. And it's not an easy thing to write some 40+ pages in 3 months, multiple drafts, and to really, feel confident in it. So congratulations to both of you. And I think we're gonna hear from Kayla first, right? So Kayla, it's all yours.
Go, Kayla. You're so cool. Go, Kayla. Go, Earns. We love you.
Okay, so I guess I'll start off with a little speech. I wrote this while delirious from a lack of oxygen in the ER last night, so please bear with me. I was so convinced that everyone's reaction to writing a senior thesis was such an over-dramatization, and then I quickly realized that I was wrong. Writing this challenged me in so many emotional, mental, and even physical ways, to the point where I wanted to call or text every single English major I had ever known and tell them, "You were right." I cried frequently while writing this, I won't lie to you all. But there was a strange catharsis to those tears. Through my writing, I was able to process and heal from things I previously thought would plague me forever. I learned new things about myself, including my body, mind, and soul, and my horizons were brought into a new culture outside of my own familiar bubble. So while it was incredibly taxing, and at times I even contemplated quitting, I want to emphasize that the payoff was so incredibly worth it. As most of you know by now from all the time I spent last semester talking about it, my thesis is a collection of 7 short creative nonfiction memoirs, each one focused around one of the 7 body chakras. Accompanying it is a critical essay exploring and analyzing the sacred Hindi text of the Katha Upanishad, and how it demonstrates an argument that suffering in all its various forms is a necessary step to reaching a state of enlightenment. The concept of enlightenment was something that often fascinated me. Who decides who reaches it? Will I know when or if I ever reach it, and what does it feel like? For me, my writing acts as both an outlet and my own personal suffering, and I mean this in the very best way. I had gone through a transformation during this writing process. I was able to grow, grieve, cry, and laugh, and experience the wildest parts of my life again. I could give and receive and have and share. Little Friends reference there. My mom's laughing. Anyways, maybe the goal of rejoicing in my own sufferings in an effort to reach enlightenment was too broad of a goal, or maybe it wasn't. But whether I got there or not, I know the experience of writing this thesis has changed me for the better. and I can finally say that I'm proud of myself for everything that I've done or everything that I've went through to get to this point. I'd like to move on to the part of my speech where I start thanking people. First and foremost, the people who were most involved in my thesis this past semester, my professor, James Miranda, and my fellow honoree, not the right word, tonight, one of my best friends, Mak Rockhold. You both saw the peaks and valleys of this thesis from start to finish, and you always gave me the most valuable feedback. Despite some crippling stress, it was one of my favorite classes last semester, and I could not have done it without both of you. To my other two best friends, Kit Richards and Frederick Van Buren, thank you for constantly encouraging me, for being the most amazing people to spend my free time with, and for taking the time to support me, even when you guys were both swamped with your own theses and obligations. I'd like to thank my family and the rest of my friends, who are all here, both for attending and for creating some of the memories I wrote about. I'd like to thank the entirety of the English department for their continued support through my 4 years at Wells. And finally, thank you to everyone who came here tonight just to show support to a couple of goofy creative writing majors that made a crappy poster on Canva. It truly means a lot to have your support here. I'd like to end my speech, obviously, with a quote from the Katha Upanishad. Arise, awake, approach the great and learn, like the sharp edge of a razor is that path, so the wise say, hard to tread and difficult to cross. My path was that of a razor, as most paths are, and yet I have approached the great, and I have learned. That was stressful. And that was just the speech. So with that, I'm going to be reading to you the first one of my 7 essays and also the last one. If I can get to it, okay. The first one is entitled Muladhara. Just as the spider spins forth its thread and draws it again, the whole creation is woven from Brahman and unto it returns, from the Mundaka Upanishad. I am 9 years old and wondering what it would be like to fall from this height. My oldest cousin Nate is drunk in the backyard playing croquet with his fiancée, but the backyard stretches back so far that even from the top of this trailer, I cannot see them. It isn't more than 10 feet, and yet I am terrified of my own intrusive thoughts. The ones that say one wrong step and I will fall and never stop falling, or even worse, the ones that tell me to do it on purpose. I don't think that we came up to Mud Bay solely because of what happened at school. After all, it is a holiday weekend, and I doubt my parents would reward me with such a trip after what had happened. I wasn't trying to break Brittany's arm, and besides, it barely even left a bruise. I just couldn't stop myself in the moment. We had an upcoming test on state capitals, and I didn't know them. There were plenty that didn't stick in my brain. North Dakota, Mississippi, Iowa, Delaware. Brittany had them all written down in her purple spiral notebook, so I had asked to see them. She scoffed in my face and told me no, that I should have been a good student. And that really set me off because I was a good student. I did everything I could to be a good student, no matter how many times Mrs. Ford screamed at me, threw rulers across the room, or sent me to the sensory room just so she could get rid of me for an hour or so. It happened fast. I'd gotten a hold of her wrist and slammed her arm down into the edge of the table, hard enough to make her cry and yell for the teacher. Mrs. Ford had to drag me down to the principal's office by my elbow while I cried and promised to be good. She told my parents that I was in fact not good. So did Brittany's mom, and so did the principal. The teacher's aide who ran the sensory room, Sarah, told them that I was just having trouble focusing, grounding myself when my emotions took over. It was supposed to be common in kids my age, but it didn't feel common. I am one of only 2 kids that must leave Mrs. Ford's spelling lessons once a day to go to the sensory room with Sarah. It's me and Garrett, who apparently has some anger management problems. I assume this is why he gets taken out of class, but when I ask Sarah what my reason for leaving class is, she just quietly replies that I have some outbursts that can be distracting to other students. Going to the sensory room for 30 minutes a day is supposed to be a way to calm my inner voice and help me process things in a constructive manner. I'm not sure what Sarah means by any of this, but if she thinks it could somehow help me, I'll play along. The sensory room is dark, only lit by glowing lava lamps and sunset lamp projectors. There's a subtle comfort to the dim lighting. It makes the space feel a bit homier than the fluorescent overhead lights I have grown so accustomed to. Sarah has also set up little activities for Garrett and me: kinetic sand, thinking putty, puzzles, miniature swing sets. My favorite activity is to lay on the inflatable chair underneath the sparkling fairy lights and watch the colors slowly shift from pink to yellow to green to blue. I'll admit, I can have fun here if Garrett is not having one of his tantrums and disrupting my relaxation. By now, the pattern was becoming clear. I would get pulled from class, spend some time in the sensory room, calm down, and then inevitably something would set me off again. A visit to the principal's office was frequently the result. This happened so often that my parents hardly even spoke to me about it anymore. There was no genuine answer to the question that they all want to ask me: why are you acting this way? So this is what we do now. We do not talk about the newest disappointment that I have brought on. Instead, we pack it up and we will head to the bay. My mom is inside taking a nap while my father and I are redoing the shingles on the roof. Every now and then he's pulling at one near where I am sitting. It makes me jump slightly, feel like I'm going to fall every single time. My feet stretch out in front of me, close enough to where they can dangle off the edge, but still far enough away where I can sit without having to look down. I'm scratching at my arm against my mother's orders not to. Little red welts are already starting to appear from the water balloon fight earlier in the day. And then when my cousins and I ran out of water balloons, but we found we still had the urge to throw things at one another, we switched to crab apples. Easier to throw, less fun to get hit by. I say that I've been helping my father up on the roof, but that truly couldn't be further from the truth. I cannot force myself to stand on the uneven slant. I will not hold a hammer, and I won't get close to the edge. Even getting you up the ladder is like pulling teeth, my father says. Do you want to climb down? He asks me, to which I furiously shake my head. I do not know whether it's out of fear, stubbornness, or both, but I will not go back down that rusted ladder. In response, he climbs down instead, disappearing back inside the trailer for a few minutes. When he reemerges, he has one of my chapter books tucked under his arm, tossing it up to me. I thought you wanted my help, I ask him, thumbing through the pages and then studying the cover. It's a cartoon image of a little boy wearing a suit and a large fake mustache. Behind him are the familiar red and white stripes of the American flag. Sharp white stars punched through a square of blue. You can read to me, he replies with a smile. Helps me concentrate. He clambers back up the ladder and puts his work gloves on, then back to hammering the nails into place. He's taking great care near the left portion of the sloped roof. That's where the leak in the kitchenette is coming from. I stare out at the lake for a little while longer, the waves gently lapping against the dock. A few trailers over, there's a Labrador retriever and some kids swimming by the pier. My aunt and my cousin are on our dock fishing. Every now and then I catch the whirring sound of a casting line. I'm not thinking of Brittany anymore, and I don't think about falling anymore. There's no point in looking down when I can look out at everything in front of me. So I open my book and begin to read aloud. So that was my first one. Thank you. I wasn't expecting applause after that. Y'all scared me. Thanks, Nash. And then I'll read my last one. So this is the 7th one out of my collection. This one is entitled Sahasrara. The body is said to be a temple, and the soul is truly Shiva. Discard the faded flower offerings of ignorance. Worship with the thought, I am he. From the Maitreya Upanishad. I had picked up a book on spirit guides, angels, and other deities back in February when the wintry weather and lack of sunshine had been particularly unbearable. There was a broad selection at the local metaphysical shop, and it was only about 15 minutes from my house. I was immediately dazzled by everything I saw once those doors opened. It smelled of sandalwood and eucalyptus incense. The type of music that I imagined would be playing when you got a massage was echoing from a few speakers hidden along the shelves. From the ceiling flew dragon kites and dream catchers. The windows were adorned with sun catchers that would have spread little flecks of rainbows across the floor if it were not for the perpetual stormy darkness New York had been experiencing for weeks on end. A table in the center of the shop held baskets of various stones and crystals, while the walls were lined with jewelry and tapestries. Shelves full of candles and incense. In the back corner, there was a tall bookcase loaded with self-help books, hand-bound leather journals, and religious texts. Right by the cash register were boxes labeled Mystery Box, Take What Speaks to You. It felt like everything spoke to me in that moment. All my senses were suddenly overwhelmed. I had grown increasingly spiritual since high school. I was picking up reading material every now and then, or collecting a few crystals here and there, but I had never seen anything like that shop. The owner must have sensed my confusion, because soon she was drifting over and linking her arm with mine. She began to show me around the shop, pointing out things she thought I would like based on my aura. She was an older woman with short curly blonde hair and thick glasses. She had deep wrinkles and smile lines emphasized each time her lips curled upward. Despite her age, she had been a seasoned traveler across the world. Often she would impress me with tales of her trips and point out where she had gotten each one of the pins or patches on her jacket. We stopped by the bookshelf, the owner growing silent when she saw me paging through a book. She let me stand there and read the interior book summary for a bit before finally speaking again. Anything in particular you're trying to learn about? I told her no, that I was just trying to find something that might offer me just a little bit of guidance. She seemed so intrigued by this statement, like I was a lost puppy that she was destined to shelter. Immediately, she joined me in the bookshelf search, although she seemed to have more of a purpose. "Are you religious at all?" she asked me, to which I replied no once more. "Well, you don't have to be religious to be spiritual, you know. I don't believe in God, but I believe in a higher power." I could not help my curiosity. Believing in something other than God, it was unheard of to me. "What's the difference?" I asked her, to which she smiled knowingly. She had hooked me. "Well, a lot of people believe in different things. Angels, ghosts, spirit guides, the universal compass. It all depends on the person. Me personally, I have always believed that I have a spirit guide watching over me." "So like a guardian angel?" "Not necessarily, love." She raised an eyebrow before handing a book over, with an emerald green cover and gold detail. I looked it over, flipping to the chapter labeled Spirit Guides. From a basic read-through, it looked like they were a mix between ghosts and guardian angels, benevolent beings that guided and protected the person in question. Through prayer or meditation, you would even be able to connect to them, talk to them, ask them questions, and get real answers. And at that point in my life, the one thing I craved the most was real answers. I was sucked into the book immediately, knowing I would not be able to put it down just as soon as I started reading it officially. "Yeah, I'll take this one, please," I told the woman, who smiled and brought it up to the front register. I followed behind her, adding a mystery box into my purchase out of impulse. I was so excited for the mystery box that I opened it in the car. Inside was a beautiful collection of 7 chakra stones, each one with the hand-carved symbol painted over in gold ink. I tried meditating with the chakra stones every night for weeks, but with no luck in contacting any kind of guide I might have had. Guided meditations, repeated affirmations, complete silence, nothing seemed to truly work. I'd started to think after a while that I might not have anything looking out for me. Maybe the universe was willing to give answers to others, but not to me. It was a few weeks after my first sleep paralysis experience when I saw that thing in my room. And that was the main answer I had been searching for, what that thing was, why I had seen it, and what I was supposed to think now. Finally, there came the night when I had almost fully resigned myself to my spirit guideless life. I was in bed wondering whether I could return the book to the shop. Karen, I had learned her name since then, would probably understand. I had been half listening to a guided meditation for what felt like 20 minutes at that point, and eventually slipped into what felt like some sort of sleep. I was alone, in darkness for a while, until a bright shining light led me out to an open landscape. There was a stream flowing through a meadow, and tall willow trees stretching up to the cloudless sky. When I stepped through the darkness and into the light, I noticed a small picnic blanket spread out over green grass. It felt warm and inviting, although no one was around, so I opted to sit down and stay for a minute. Once I did, I heard the soft sound of the wind brushing through the strands of leaves hanging low from the trees. My head turned to look to the side, where I saw 2 figures coming up over the hill. The first was a Native American girl with dark red face paint and elaborate braids. She wore what appeared to be a traditional ceremony dress. The only thing off about her was that she was made completely out of grass. Her hair was leaves and petals of daisies. I first thought of Tefiti from the movie Moana. I'd spent so much time studying the subtle details of her face and her clothes that I had hardly noticed the one standing next to her. Even today, I find it hard to describe Talon. They were an abstract figure, their skin smooth and shiny chrome. They had no face, so no expressions to gauge. I wish I could say more about them, but that's truly all there was. The woman made from grass and plants raised a hand to give a delicate wave in my direction before sitting down on a picnic blanket. "Hello, Kayla. We've been waiting quite a while for you to join us. I'm so pleased that you could finally make it." "Did the meditation work?" I asked, honestly believing myself to have been dreaming at that point. "It worked," she answered with a kind smile before introducing myself. "I'm Flora, your first guide, and this is Talon. They do not speak, but they are still a part of you, and they would still love to help you." Talon's emotionless head nodded in response, but not in the cold way you might have imagined. They actually radiated a sense of warmth. "And you are supposed to guide me through the rest of my life, right?" I asked, finally a spark of hope having ignited in me. "Not necessarily, but we can give you some advice," Flora says. I muster up the courage to open my mouth and ask the question that had been burning in my stomach. "Can you tell me what the thing was in my room a while back? The little boy? The sleep paralysis thing?" Flora and Talon both turned to look at each other. If Flora's face could have drained of color, it probably would have. "We know what he is," Flora finally nodded. "And you can tell me?" "Maybe," she paused, choosing her words carefully. "Maybe not specifics, but know that he is not like us. He will try to come again, come to get to you. You must never try to lucid dream. It is how he crosses between his realm and yours. And you can't tell me anymore?" Talon shook her head furiously, and Flora sadly did the same. "Unfortunately, no. You aren't ready to hear more quite yet. I felt my own heart drop to my stomach, and the fear began to creep into my veins. Slowly, the landscape around me began to sway, like a movie projected on a screen as the gentle wind picked up. There were now clouds beginning to swirl through the sky, stifling the light. I looked around me, then back to Flora and Talon, who were both standing now. Keep meditating. We will meet again soon. What if I can't get back? I was desperate then, terrified that I would not be able to return, and terrified of being alone again. The first time is always the hardest, but now you know your way back. Come back soon, and we will have much to talk about. Flora assured me within the last moments, before the clouds and the wind began to swallow the landscape whole. Then I was falling upwards, my chest becoming lighter and lighter until the swirling storm consumed me. My eyes snapped open, and I was back in my bedroom, acutely aware of the cold chakra stones still laying on my body. My breathing was level, even, but my heartbeat was fluttering inconsistently. Across the room from me was my phone, still playing the guided meditation, and my book open to page 45. I breathed once, twice. I forced the air into my lungs until my shoulders had relaxed and my chest opened up again, until my eyes had refocused and the tension in my jaw had ceased. I was there. I was still there. I am still here. All right, so that's all I have for y'all today, but up next is Mak.
I know them. They're so cool.
Hi, everyone. Before I start my speech, I just want to say something really quickly. To my friends who are here from Rob's class, thank you for being here, and please go to class afterwards. He was so gracious to push back class an hour so that you guys could be here and that he could also be here. So please still go to class. Thanks, Rob. You're great. Yeah, that's all. Also, if you want to know what these harlots be trippin' means, as per the poster, just come and see me and I will show you the TikTok. I don't want to show that live on air. Anyway. Hi, everyone. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to make a speech, but I'm going to anyway. I'd like to thank my friends and family for being here tonight, and for my mom for driving 3 hours to get here. And to my friends who are watching, I love you and I miss you very much. To Kayla, my comrade, who experienced everything that I did, plus some, it's an honor to share this podium with you tonight. You did some amazing work, and you always do. To Fred, who let me cry over and over again about the story without ever seeing it because I was embarrassed of the product. I could thank a lot of people here, but for the sake of time, and also probably my tears, there's one person here that I really need to thank, and that is Dr. James Miranda. That'll be the only time I ever say doctor, so you should probably relish in that. Without his guidance and reassurance, this piece would not nearly be as good as it turned out to be. He delivered feedback in a constructive way that never made me feel dumb. He let me talk about fan fiction for weeks and never discouraged me from writing my critical piece that turned out to be about fan fiction. He was actually intrigued and asked me a lot of questions about it. It may seem like the bare minimum for a professor to do, but that goes a long way for a student. Last semester was a whirlwind of emotions, mainly consisting of anger towards my high school teachers for not fixing my grammar sooner, but mainly feeling inferior about my writing. I wanted this story to be perfect, polished, and mainly sound nothing like my own writing. James sent us an email on December 4th, the week before it was due, and it is my favorite email. Some of it read, Mak, Kayla, blah, 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 editing suggestions. And he ended the email with, having said that, it is still my own aesthetic and bias being imposed. So take what feels right, ignore, modify, riff, tell me to shut up, etc. It's been an amazing experience watching these works come to fruition. One last push. I was actually crying when he sent us that email because I saw the amount of edits he had sent prior to that email. But then I laughed. I laughed, not only because it was funny, but I was so focused on the edits he wanted me to make that I forgot what I was writing. A gay ripoff of A Christmas Carol. But more importantly, though, it was mine, and it is all mine. So again, thank you to everyone who supported me through this process, gave me words of wisdom, took their time to read it, and it means more than you will ever know. Anyways, I'm done now. I'm done being sappy. On to the story.
Mac, we love you.
I love you. So I will be reading the last 6 pages of my thesis, so I'm going to give a little bit of context. So the main premise of my story is that there are 3 time travel ghosts, like the Christmas Carol, that takes Sage, our main character, on a trip of the past, present, and future. Aroquette is the ghost of the past, Corlish is the ghost of the present, and Helks is the ghost of the future. Sage has a history of mental health issues stemming from issues with her parents, gender identity, sexuality, and just plain old growing up. They reach out and grab my hand in theirs. As soon as they touch my hand, the beautiful colors start to pour in. All around me are snippets of memories I don't remember having. Most are fuzzy. All I can see are people driving, walking dogs, eating, or laying down. I squint my eyes, hoping to help with the fuzziness. It doesn't help. It only makes it worse. I look over to Helks, who is also looking at the memories around us. A small smile on their lips. They're staring at the ones right in front of us. It looks like me, all grown up. I'm holding keys to a house that I don't recognize. There's a person next to me. Their hair is long, but it's all I can see. After a few minutes or so, the colors start to fade and a beautiful landscape comes into view. Hills upon hills are ahead of us, trees starting to turn different shades of yellow, orange, red, purple, and some are still green. Fall is my favorite time of year, it always has. The crisp, cool air, the apples, the rain making the ground muddy, pumpkins, fireplaces, everything about it is perfect. The air pricks my skin and causes me to shiver. The sun starts to set, the bright orange rays lighting up the sky. I look over to Helks, who has their eyes closed and has a faint smile on their lips. Behind me, I hear loud giggling and the sound of heavy footsteps hitting the wood. I let go of Helks' hands and I turn around. The view of a beautiful wood cabin fills my view. I gasp lightly as I see myself, one small child, and one more person sitting on the steps to the cabin. Like the memories, the person is hazy and difficult to see. Helks, why are they blurry? You get the opportunity to see the future. We can't tell you everything. They turn around and they face the cabin. Hi, the little kid, a little girl, stops in front of me and looks up. You look like my mommy, she says, looking at me with wide, curious eyes. How can this girl see me? How is that possible? Okay, bye. She takes off running again, leaving me wide-eyed and confused. Are you coming? Helks calls ahead of us, and still walking, I jog to catch up. She saw me. How was that possible? I ask when I catch up to them. You ask a lot of questions. Kids can see ghosts. Helks shrugs. I guess they've been doing it for a while. We walk up the stairs, past me and the unknown person, and sit down on a bench that was on the porch. I watch as I put my head on the person's shoulders. I'm so different. I have really short hair, almost a pixie cut, and it's dyed a deep cherry red. I look so happy, so calm, something I haven't felt in a long time. Do you see those leaves out there? Helks asks, looking forward at the hills. The hills go on for miles, almost valley-like. I turn to look at them and I raise an eyebrow. Yeah, I do. Why? Do you see how the colors of the leaves are all different? Some are orange, yellow, purple, and red. I nod. Do you also notice that some remain green? I nod again. All of those leaves are changing. Some are faster than others. Some of the trees have already shed their leaves, while some haven't even started yet. We are all in a different path. Some take longer than others. Helks looks at me and gives me a small smile. I just feel so lost. I feel stuck. I have been feeling the same way since I was a child, and I haven't been able to kick it. I feel like I get better for a few weeks, but then I'm back to the same habits, I say, looking at myself sitting on the steps. It doesn't get easier, Helks replies and shrugs. Wow, that's great. Thank you for that, I say sarcastically and start to pick at my cuticles. My finger starts to bleed and I rub it on my pants. You didn't let me finish, Helks starts. It doesn't get easier. It gets harder, actually, but it will be worth it. It's not about what happens to you, it's how you deal with it. You're going to keep getting knocked down, and once you get up, you'll be knocked down again. Helks looks at me and places a hand on my shoulder. I didn't notice that I'm crying. You have so much potential, and you just need to work for it. I don't want to work for it. I'm tired of working for it, I choke out. I'm so lost. I don't know what to do with all of this information. I thought that by going with you three that I'd know what I'm supposed to do. I feel my temper rise again, and I can't stop it. I'm just so sick of this, Helks, I cry out. Why can't anyone help me? Why doesn't anyone know what to do from here? Where do I go? Sage, you will be okay. You don't need to have everything in your life figured out right this second. I will tell you what you need to do. Helks grabs my face and forces me to look at them in the eyes. I can barely see them over my own tears. Really? I croak out. Yes, really. They smile and wipe the tears off of my face. You need to stop borrowing tomorrow's issues and worrying about them today. That has gotten you nowhere. Clearly. You think you're going to solve every issue in one day, and it's not going to happen. If you want this life, they gesture towards the landscape. You need to give yourself time to figure out where you need to go. The leaves are out there, are all going at their own pace, and so are you. You'll get there too. Helks lets go of my face, and once I stop crying, they wipe their hands on their clothes. I always thought that I'd be dead by 13, but now I'm looking at 60-year-old me and 30-year-old me. If you want this, you have to work for it. Helks repeats, and I nod. I've heard that a million times, but this time it feels different. My partner hops off the steps, racing towards the little girl, and swoops her up in their arms. Both of them are giggling, and they sway her back and forth in the air, pretending like she's an airplane. I look to Helks, who looks towards the rolling hills again, looking oddly blissful. I close my eyes and feel the warm breeze blow through my hair. I breathe in slowly, feeling the way the breath fills my lungs and let go of it even slower. I can feel a sort of weight being lifted off my shoulders. Not a lot, but some, and that's all I need. Helks taps my knees, and I open my eyes to look at them, knowing it's probably our time to leave. I slowly get up, and they do the same. I walk ahead of them towards the stairs where I'm still sitting. As I walk past me, I look over at her, and she's looking straight at me. I know she can't see me, but I give her a small wave anyway. She's been smiling this whole time. This was a different smile. It was one of pure relief. Come, Helks says, as they usher me down the stairs and out onto the yard. I take one more look at my possible future and grab Helks' hands, finally ready to leave. I understand now. The world around us melts away into the scenery of memories I've come to know. I don't look at anyone in particular. I just let them pass me by. When we arrive back at my room where Corlish and Arrowcat are sitting on the bed, having a friendly conversation with each other. It feels odd seeing them engage in conversation like that. It's almost like they're friends. Hey, welcome back, you two. Did you have so much fun? Arrowcat asks sarcastically, and Corlish pushes them slightly. What? Every time someone goes with Helks, they come back mortified. Arrowcat pouts slightly and moves off the bed. Corlish follows. I actually liked it, I reply with a small smile and look up at Helks, who just grunts in return. I have a lot of work to do, that's for sure. I let go of Helks' hands and step back to look at the three of them. This is the first time that I see them all together, complete. Who would have thought that 3 corporate ghosts would end up helping me more than anything? Well, Sage, our work here is done. Corlish folds their arms across their chest, but your work is not done. We hope to see you again, Arrowcat blurts out giddily, and Helks shoots them a glare. What are they talking about? I open my mouth to ask, but before I could, Helks cuts me off. Goodbye, Sage, they all wave as they disappear into the same beams of light as when they had arrived. I squint against the bright twinkling light. After a few moments, the 3 flashes of light dissipate, and it's just me in my room. I smile to myself, and I look around my room. Who knew that ghosts could leave such a mess? My bed is disheveled, the books I threw on the ground are still there, and there are some candy wrappers with a language I don't recognize on it. I walk over to my window, move the curtains to the side, and throw my window open, allowing the cold December air to rush in. The brisk air clings to my skin, and it causes me to shiver. I close my eyes, take a deep breath, in and out. I am still here. And that's all.
I feel like I lived in those 2 pieces for a very long time, and now I've had some distance from it, and they're even better. than I remember. Thank you so much for coming out to celebrate this amazing work. Thank you to Mac and Kayla for making my first senior seminar. Just a lot of crying. It was, it was more than that. I cried. I feel like I teared up once or twice, right? Maybe?
I feel like I remember it.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
I feel like
But anyway, thank you so much for those of you who traveled here. Thank you for everybody who took some time out of the night. Thank you to Rob for pushing back your class for a for the record, for a class that Mac is not even in. It's very sweet. And thank you to Cole and IT for the stream. And yeah, there's still, I think, some pickles if anybody needs pickles. Thank you again.